Very good afternoon to all of you, and thank you very much for coming, especially members of the Diplomatic Corps. Today is quite an unusual day. As you know, it's quite hazy outside, so I really thank all of you for taking the time to come and join us for this afternoon's forum. Today's forum actually deals with a very important topic, the future of the Commonwealth. As many of you know, the Commonwealth consists of 53 member countries. And this is relatively large. If you look at the number of countries around the world, the Commonwealth will probably take up a quarter of the world's countries around the world. And yet, very often we don't hear anything significant coming out of the Commonwealth. So the question we want to ask today is actually quite simple. Is the Commonwealth still relevant in the 21st century? There are of course no easy answers, but I hope that this afternoon's discussion will enlighten us on the issues involved. We have three really interesting speakers with us this afternoon. We have the official Malaysian representative to the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, the Speaker of the Dewan Rakyat Tan Sri Pandikar, and we also have Professor Selva, who used to work in the Commonwealth Secretariat. And finally, we have a very young Malaysian who likes to call himself the one-term MP, Yusmadi, and he was a member of the official Commonwealth Elections Observer Group to the Maldives. Finally, I would like to thank Dr. Venkat from the Round Table, one of the UK's oldest journals, and they specialize in Commonwealth issues, for co-organizing today's forum. The Commonwealth and the Round Table actually have a very long-standing interest in Malaysia, and in fact, last December's special issue of the Round Table was devoted to the Malaysian general elections held in May last year. So thank you again for coming, and I invite Dr. Venkat to be the moderator for this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, James, for the very kind introduction. What I intend to do is, before I give the floor to the speakers, just to say a few words about the Round Table, which, as James mentioned, is one of the sponsors of today's forum. The Round Table is, as James mentioned, one of the oldest foreign affairs journals still in publication or in continuous publication. There are a few copies here for anybody who might be interested to see what we have in the journal. It is both an academic journal and a journal that caters to the diplomatic stroke professional community. I took over as editor about 6 years ago, and what I've been trying to do is to make the journal more and more relevant to practitioners. We have in recent months introduced a section which allows for shorter articles. Normally the articles that appear in the Round Table are scholarly articles of usually about 6,000 words. But I've been trying also to accommodate shorter articles. So one of the things I would like to do is to encourage any of you who might be interested in contributing to the journal to please do so. You would of course be able to also get information about the journal from the website of the journal. If you simply type in the Round Table Commonwealth Journal of International Affairs in Google, you should be able to get to our website. Unfortunately, if you simply type the Round Table, you are likely to get into some very wacky websites. So I would caution you against that, as long as you mention Commonwealth Journal. The journal was founded in 1910, so we are 104 years old now. We celebrated our centenary just a few years ago. It has a pretty good circulation in the majority of Commonwealth countries, but we also have the good fortune of being closely associated with Commonwealth institutions, both official and unofficial. Among other things, the Round Table has a presence at every CHOGM, the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. We organize a number of events at CHOGMs. In addition to that, we have other events, not only in London, which is our base, but also in other parts of the Commonwealth. And today's is a good example of collaborative working with an academic institution. James has been particularly supportive of the Round Table. He quite modestly did not mention that he was the guest editor of the special issue to which he made reference on Malaysia. He has also contributed previously to the journal, and so I'm very happy to be associated with James's foundation, which is the main sponsor this afternoon. I would also like to express my gratitude to the three speakers who have very kindly agreed to make their presentations. So without further ado, what I would like to do is to invite each of the three speakers to speak initially for about 5 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes, and then the intention is to have a wider discussion. I'm going to be as unobtrusive as possible in terms of expressing my own opinions. I claim no expertise in foreign affairs. I'm just a hack barrister, and in those circumstances, it would not be fair if I were to take too much of the time. So can I first ask the learned speaker to make his presentation?
When I received a call from Professor James asking me whether I'm willing to participate in this round people today, my thought was, what am I supposed to talk about? Because this is a Commonwealth, whether Commonwealth is really or not. Because the perception is that when you talk about Commonwealth, then you're talking about the heads of governments, you're talking about children, you're talking about the works of ministers. In short, you're talking about the executive functions of the Commonwealth. Then I started browsing the internet. I asked my officers in Parliament to help me do research. And the more I read about it, the more I get confused. So there are two school of thought. One is that it's Commonwealth relevant. One school of thought says that it is outdated. It's more or less like a club. And another school of thought says, yes, it is still relevant. Depends how you look at it. Then I made up my mind. I sat down and it was a bit short. So today, I think I will answer it from my own experience. Because the thing that I know of about the Commonwealth is that there are about hundreds associations or separate entities that works within the network of Commonwealth. Now, one of them, of course, is CPA, which I am the joint chairman in Malaysia. The other one is CISPOX. CISPOX is a Commonwealth Parliamentary Speaker and Presiding Officer of the Commonwealth, which also I am the chairman, and Commonwealth Parliamentary Woman in Malaysia. Now, to me, it depends how you address the question, answer it. My question would not be, is Commonwealth relevant, still relevant in today's world? My question to myself would be, is Commonwealth matters to Malaysia? Or is Malaysia matters to Commonwealth? Either way you put it, I think it matters. Now, going back to Parliament, CPA, I think not many of you are aware that the only important institution in a parliamentary democracy is Parliament, whose members does not require any academic qualification. You can be anybody. Once you are party or you become independent, you stand for elections, you become a member of Parliament. But then again, when you reach Parliament, you will be performing a function that is very complex. You will be participating in debate on certain legislations or acts. You will be participating in policies that maybe you are not expert on it, like income tax, GST, and whatnot. So here, the function of CPA is actually to educate, to expose members of Parliament to the working of Parliament. Anyway, you live in the parliamentary world. Now, that is the functions. Now, if that is one of the functions, that is to educate members of Parliament who are not educated, you don't have any training, job training, whatever, then in short, I think in that way, Parliament is still relevant. Of course, there are issues in details that ought to be debated and looked into in details. The thing that I can think of now is one of the things that Commonwealth is supposed to promote is human rights, apart from advancement of democracy. And when you start talking about human rights now in the world, it depends how you define it also. If you are living in Ireland, maybe, or in England, New Zealand, Australia, one of the fundamental things of human rights is you can want anything. You know, where here in Malaysia, for instance, the CPC does not allow you, if you have a homosexual relationship, or the mental lesbians or whatever. But they talk about it very much in the West. Now, if these kind of issues were to be used as a yardstick to determine whether a particular nation or a country adhering to the Commonwealth core values, human rights, then of course Malaysia failed in that. But I think it is also very important for a country like Malaysia, going back to the question just now that I posed, is Commonwealth matters to Malaysia, or is Malaysia matters to Commonwealth? Of course it matters, because when you go to conferences like CP conference or CISCOP conference, then you discuss things very cordially. You don't propose motions, you don't vote on it, you reach a decision by consensus. You can put your view very frankly, and your friends or those members of parliament in some of the common countries also they can put their view very frankly. That is the place where you can argue on behalf of your country why certain things are happening in your country and it is not happening in some other countries. Why some other values must not be imposed on others. And when you are discussing that very clearly, then of course you will understand your stand. Now, I will bring this point to when I was doing my research, there is a reporter that he said he was watching an interview. It was an interview in TV where the Minister of Foreign Affairs, William Hague, now is no longer Minister of Foreign Affairs, I think Sky News. He was asked a question because at that time the Commonwealth head of government was supposed to have their meeting in Sri Lanka. He was asking whether David Cameron will be attending that conference because the issue then is human rights in some other issues in Sri Lanka. And he was asking also David Cameron whether he will be willing to shake hands with politicians like Robert Mugabe in Zimbabwe. Now, that reporter anchor was pinning down that Minister of Foreign Affairs, because he's a Minister of Foreign Affairs, he should know. And he tried to evade the question. He didn't answer the question directly. He tried to explain in such a way that it is not offending any other Commonwealth countries. Now, this is where the article is said that politicians actually, what we do is that they agree to disagree. Meaning, even some other Commonwealth countries does not agree with what we are doing here in Malaysia. But then again, because what we are practicing democracy, they have to agree to our opinion. They don't have to accept it. I think that's my view on this for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I now pass the mic on to Professor Selva?
Thank you very much. I've got 7 minutes. The job has been made easier by Dan's video has given you I think, a pretty good insight into the Commonwealth from the CPA perspective. I worked at the Commonwealth before for 10 years. That was a long time ago. And the fact that the question comes up, is the Commonwealth relevant? Clearly implies it must have been relevant at some point in time. But equally important, this has come up, and I think you have brought it up in this book. After Colombo, the question came up again, and there's an article that is the Commonwealth relevant? But no definitive answers have come through, and therefore I think the jury is still out. Perhaps this discussion will take it further. Because of the time factor, I will just focus myself on one fundamental question or issue. The rationale and the role of the Commonwealth, which gave it its relevance some 20, 30 years ago. And then lead on to actual topic itself. Why? The Commonwealth is today 68 years old today, this year. Starting off, of course, with the independence of India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, way back in 1947, 48. The decolonization process hastened after that. Jadi Dagang and Guyana picking up independence of before Malaysia in 1957. Then, of course, you had the Kenya coming in after a long struggle. But by 1974, 75, there were already 45 former colonies which had gained independence. There are another 30 or so dependencies, we call them, that were still in the queue. But in the late 50s, Britain itself started looking at, Britain, the father of the Commonwealth, started looking at another woman, for whatever it had Europe. And in 1958, Britain, of course, went into the Treaty of Rome. By 1973, Britain entered the European Economic Community. So Britain had to look both towards the east as well as towards the south. And increasingly, Britain shared its stewardship responsibilities for its former colonies with the Commonwealth and the Second Kenya. It was a shared learning. It was also a very exciting time globally. The Cold War was still there at its peak in the bipolar world, which was there. The non-aligned movement had come in, and countries that had become independent had, of course, three choices. Side with A or B, or take the middle path, which they tried to do. And you had great leaders within the Commonwealth family who were part of that movement. Indira Gandhi was there, Nehru kicked it off for the start. In Africa, for example,